Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream and Your Head in the Cloud. I'm Sophia, and I'm joined today by Alina.
Hi,
Alina.
everybody. Hi, Sophie.
Thanks for being on the stream.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yes, I was really excited because honestly, you're the first person I know that works in 3D art. Can we call it 3D art or should we call it 3D design? What would be the perfect term to describe it?
Both of them can work because you can apply it to more artistic productions or to design production, architectural stuff, anything actually. It's creating a new world, so
yeah.
Anything.
So we're gonna look a little bit at your work and what you've done and also talk a little bit about how you got to do 3D designs. And we also gonna talk a little bit about what 3D is gonna continue to grow and what we're gonna see more in the world. And I know that you started with illustration before. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And you want to explain a little bit how you started illustration and how you then developed to become a 3D artist, like to work in 3D?
Yeah, of course. Actually, I started with visual creations since I was a kid. I've always been and felt attracted by drawing. Actually, I've started hand drawing when I was 3 or 4 and then painting. And it was a very natural attraction towards the creation of visual material. And so my first illustrations were hand drawn. And then I moved towards more digital creation processes. I used to use back then lots of Illustrator and Photoshop, which were the main two softwares I employed for my illustrations. And then I think that at a certain point, since I've enjoyed and I still enjoy so much creating 2D illustrations, I felt and started feeling that it wasn't enough for me. Every time I was finishing a 2D creation, I felt like I haven't been able to transmit exactly what I wanted and how I wanted to communicate it. It's a very personal thing, but I think I didn't want to accept it. So at a certain point, I kind of stopped doing that for a bit. And it popped out this idea of getting near the 3D creation tools and see how it works from there. And I really enjoy it because I think the most important thing is when you start something new, when you start creating by using really different tools from the ones you used to use before that, it's really important to enjoy the process.
Yeah. Because I assume it's a lot of learning you have to do to be able to create 3D art. I just assume because I don't know actually, but...
It's like everything. Of course, when something is really new, and especially when that something is so complex as a 3D software, as a contemporary 3D software can be, and they get every day more complex because you can right now do lots of things. Actually related a bit to your first question, how can we relate to the 3D creation as an artistic one, design? You can do anything with a 3D software, even just one of them. So you can animate, you can model, you can render, you can do all of them together or just one and specialize on that. So of course there is, as much as you want to learn, as much information is there for you to have to learn. And it depends also on your relationship with the technology. So how easy do you get to learn and how familiar are you with some kind of more technical kind of information? And I wasn't a very tech friendly person. So maybe it took me more than to somebody else, or maybe not. But I do enjoy it. So who knows?
One question before we dive into, because you also have a picture that you're gonna edit and you're gonna show us one of your amazing pictures. But one question before we dive in is, how did you learn the things you learned, and what advice would you give someone that maybe wants to start creating 3D art or is just curious to know more about it? What would you recommend?
As for my 3D knowledge, my 3D skills, I would say I'm an autodidact. I've learned by myself, and I spent constantly time on learning. So each day I dedicated time. At the beginning it was a lot more, and from time to time right now it is a lot also. But the best thing I think I've learned, rather than the precise skills and the precise information I have on that or other software, is learning. It's the fact that learning, it's already part of my lifestyle, because actually when you have to learn a software that, as I've said, it gets updated every time, you have to stay updated. So it has to be part of you. I usually use online material, and that can be online training, online free material on YouTube, for instance. And I started with short but complete trainings, because for some of the software I'm using, I started from scratch. So from zero, and I had no idea how to really find good material on YouTube, because there is so much information, so many videos, that if you don't know anything about the software, how can you choose? How can you pick one and know that that's the right one for you? And so I always, if I'm starting from zero, I want to know a bit more about the software, and then go and pick among all that material there. And as what concerns my advice about somebody that starts now, I would say that the most important thing is starting. But not only because, you have to start, because postponing sometimes is something that we used to do with our dreams and the things our goals, sometimes, even if they are really practical. But I think that it's important to start, to learn, and then to produce, because that's the only way you get to finally know if you really like to do that. And if you understand that it's really not something that gives you pleasure, I think it's really important also to be able to admit it towards yourself. Because sometimes it's really tough, and it's really tough because at that point you have to find something else maybe to do. But if you find out that you really like it, it's really important to keep going, especially when it's harder, it's frustrating. Maybe you can take some references, find some people that you can follow online, and that you like in terms of style, of how they manage their artistical image, how they post, what they say, but especially in terms of your goal, like artistically also, just find people you like, because it's a good meter. It's a good,
I think that's also a very good general advice for any artist. There's one question in the chat. Sanyana asks, do you visualize and start working on 3D directly, or do you go from 2D to 3D, the image you're going to show us?
No, yes and no. Yes, because I sketch a lot. I do sketch a lot, but they are only sketches. So I do lots of sketches, and I have lots of options, and they are really sketchy. So they don't look nice. I used to do that, with illustrations, and then I found one, and then I took that one and maybe vectorialized that. But I'm not doing that with the 3D. It's just for me to have a clearer idea about the composition, because that's the most important thing in my creative process, being able to visualize what I want, especially the mood, the colors, maybe the style, sometimes not really the image in itself. And I start from there, but I really do want a clear idea when I start. Some other artists don't want to be conditioned. So
okay, so should we jump into Photoshop and explain a little bit while we talk a little bit more about your work? So you edit your images in Photoshop before you export them to change the colors to make them look more like you want them in the color scheme, or just in general before we start, what are we going to do?
So I usually apply some editing, post-processing inside the 3D software I'm using. So after rendering the image, before rendering the image, I usually do work on the colors, on the composition, on the depth of field, on the lenses. So anything I can tweak there, the exposure, because I'm actually using a camera, so it's like taking a photo. I work on all that inside the software, and I want to get the best result I can directly from the software. But it happens lots of times that the result is what I'm going to show you here. I have a couple of images actually prepared for that. It's maybe too dark, and I don't feel that the colors really merge together as I would want. So it's like almost every time I pass my images through Photoshop and do something. Maybe it's just a simple tweak. Maybe it's just a couple of minutes, and sometimes it's half an hour because I don't decide on the colors at a certain point. But yeah, it's there. It's always there.
Yeah. Photoshop can be 10 minutes or it can be 10 hours for one image. It's the exact same for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you do? What would you do first? Let's start with the editing.
So yeah, I have this render here, and I see it as really, really dark. And even if I like the fact that the foreground is quite separated, also in terms of composition, but also in terms of depth of field from the background, and I like that. And then we have a central element, which is this fluo sci-fi geometry, that it's really the opposite of the nature around it. I feel that the colors don't blend so well. I feel that maybe the image could be a bit sharper and not so dark. I think I've added just a bit of vignette in post-production inside the software. You can see it really here, but there is. But I think I will accentuate that and leave outside the parts that I want to be lighter. And yeah, that's yeah. So I will start. And yes. I usually, should I just say what I'm doing, or?
Yeah, just say what you're doing, and if it's okay, I'm going to ask you some questions that I have prepped while you do that.
Okay, so great, I like that. So I've just converted this file, this image, into, from here, right click, I've converted it into a smart object because I want to sharpen it a bit. I want to apply a filter, which is here, it's called sharpen, and it's called an unsharp mask. You can see here a small detail, and yeah, the good thing, I think I like these values. You can see them here on the stones a bit.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you can add it here and then turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can notice that, but there is. It's just a small touch. I really think it didn't need so much sharpen, but I like the fact that it's non-destructive and it's still there. It's a layer there, and that's all. And now I will start with the vignette, and I usually add that by selecting the whole image, and then I would go and transform the selection. I think that there was a message there saying that Photoshop will disable this small filter here while I'm editing my selection. So I will just see what kind of size I would want. I would then apply it.
Yeah.
And I would just feather it a bit. So now we have a circle. And then I usually work with adjustment layers because they are non-destructive, and I always have the freedom to just keep working on them if I don't like them, and to group them together. So you can find them here among the other options, like creating a new layer, a folder, but you can have them here also, and you can have them here also. So lots of points for the adjustment layers. It's up to you where you want to find them and use them. You can also obviously change and put them here or put them here on the side. So I usually use them from here. So I use the curves, and what this does here. So at the beginning, I will start by making the image a bit brighter.
Mm-hmm. Like raising the midtones. That's what you're
exactly
doing now, right?
Yeah. And then I will duplicate this layer, and with Control or Command E, I will invert it, go down, and in the curves, and now you can see we have a small vignette. What happens here, and I will keep with this one not opened, and I will go again inside the one that helped me to brighten a bit the image, is the fact that I still have some dark here, and I don't want the sky to be dark. So what's white?
Hello? I think we have a little bit of a connection issue right now. I don't know if everyone in the chat can still hear us. Yes, they can. We just lost Alina for a second, I think. Entirely. Not entirely. She's still here, apparently, but I can't hear her. So let's see if we can get her back. Not sure what we're gonna do right now. We will be right back, just a little bit of a technical issue. Hello, everyone. Thank you for
Hi.
sticking around. We had a bit of a technical issue that we solved now. So if you're still here with us, welcome back. And thank you for waiting for, I think, 5 minutes. We were
Thank you.
just talking about how you edited your vignette. We were looking at your amazing image. And also while we were a little bit offline for a second, I think I saw in the chat that people talked about that it's hard to find good resources for 3D, like I mean maybe tutorials or any learning program. And I wondered if you have maybe any suggestions for people that you thought were really useful, like maybe even one specific YouTube channel or anything that you would tell people to go have a look at.
I think it depends a lot on which software are you going to use, and that makes a difference. So there is lots of material on some particular software, and maybe on some other there isn't. And as I said, it's maybe people have tried directly by going to YouTube, and maybe the videos they've seen are really not the ones they should have, and maybe that's a bit one of the reasons why. I would recommend some of the courses on some big web platforms like Udemy, for instance, or because you can find training for any software there. I could recommend some YouTube channels, but they would be applied to the software I'm using, and that because it's particularly and specifically on that. But I think that as long as you have like a bit of like information on how to use the software and a basis for that, it wouldn't be so difficult to find something. I would definitely use YouTube. And for instance, if you would want to be sure that the channel or you're following, it's a good one, maybe try to check if that person has like a series, a reproduction list about.
Oh no. I feel like we're not lucky today with the stream. Let's see. Oh. We're gonna wait for like 5 seconds to see if it works. Yeah, take 2. Hello, everyone. We're so sorry that we had some technical issues today. For some reason, we're not lucky and we can't really do the stream. It's breaking down, already happened twice, and we've lost our lovely guest. It doesn't mean you will not hear about 3D in Photoshop. We will postpone and we will be back another time. And for now, I hope you have a lovely day. I thank you even for joining for a few minutes. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely Thursday, and I see you next week, hopefully with no technical issues. And yeah, stay safe. See you next week. Bye.